My name is George. I'm a compulsive overeater.
Hey, George.
I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the GreySheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat between meals no matter what. And abstinence and recovery are the most important things. I'll pass around some pictures. They kind of, it's like what I used to be like, what happened, and what happened again. And there's a picture here that's not labeled. It's my brother with Lois Wilson. So.
Wow.
So. I have a problem with semantics also. Recovery, to me, sounds like something that I lost and I went to get back. And a bridge back to life means I had a life, I went over the bridge, and now I'm going over the bridge again. And I have a hard time with that because I don't think I was ever covered. You know, I just got a life, you know. It's the same thing, a bridge back to life. I didn't have a life. I lived in this desolate, horrible place. So that's just how the words go in my head. But all the things I do to sustain my life and to sustain and progress my recovery. I'm a compulsive eater my whole life. From a little kid, I wanted, if my dad had 2 fried things, I wanted 2 fried things. If his ronzoni was in a big bowl, I wanted my ronzoni in a big bowl. So I wanted to eat as much food as my father. I had this I didn't, you know, even as a small child, I had an unhealthy relationship with food. I wanted more and more. You know, whatever the max portions were, give me that plus a little more, you know? That was my style. And what did that get me? Well, physically, it got me, I was overweight. I wasn't obese yet, but I was overweight, but I was an energetic kid, so didn't become obese. But I had to buy clothing in specialty stores for pudgy kids. I recall my mother taking me for school uniforms and clothes and at the specialty stores. And I recall that my father took me for a suit, and it was when they started to match the slacks with the jacket as a pair for the suit. He would just switch up the numbers for whatever fit me. He said, don't worry, we would take 5 suits in the dressing room. Whatever pants fit, I would get those pants, and whatever jacket fit, I would get that, and he would just switch the numbers. I tried doing diets that my father had done. In the newspaper, they'd have a small article. It says if you have 21 of these citrus in a week or whatever, you will lose 17 pounds in 5 days. And I couldn't even eat one of those citruses, you know. One day I could do it. Or if you would drink an 8-ounce glass of this stuff 3 times a day, you would lose 20. And that was like the most disgusting thing I could imagine at the time. So I couldn't do that. But what I could do to control my weight was fast. And I spent about, I don't know, 3-4 years doing this yearly fast to play sports. You had to weigh you had to meet a certain weight criteria to play with kids your own age. And if I exceeded that, I'd have to play with bigger and older kids. So I fasted every year, and sometimes we played in 2-year age brackets, like 12 and 13, 13, 14, 15, 16. So the first year I usually didn't have as much weight to lose as the second year. A lot of things occurred to me after I came into recovery about what my life was like back then, because I really I didn't have any friends, intimate friends, no one to talk about how I felt, what was going on in my life. Because in my house, we didn't talk about that either. What we did is if you said, I don't like that, they would slam a cabinet door or slam a bathroom door. It was only yelling and slamming doors. And whoever slammed the loudest or the last, that's where the discussion ended. And I thought that was normal. I thought that's what I grew up with. I didn't have any point of reference, you know, how people talked or spoke to one another. I guess, so I was a compulsive overeater from a little kid, but as I got a little older, I realized that drugs, alcohol, and all these other things were quite nice also. And I managed to gravitate always with a bunch of people that did the same thing I did. And these were my friends, but I didn't talk to them about anything intimate or any connectivity. It was just this was what we did, and that's how we were connected, and that was it. I went into the service in the Army I guess about 235 pounds. At the end of basic training, I weighed 185 pounds, about what I weigh now, actually. And the Army is a very, very wise institution because they sent me to Baker School. And at the end of basic training, I weighed 185 pounds. And at the end of Baker School, I weighed 249 pounds. And it was only 6 or 8 weeks. And I remember eating I don't know what the brand here is in Ireland, but it's Wonder back home. And it's Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme back home. But sweets, grains and sweets. And when I got to, like I said, I always fell in with like-minded people. And I found a bunch of people that drank and drugged and stayed out all the time, but we also played racquetball. And I guess it's a form of exercise bulimia because I lived my same life, and I went back to 185 pounds for playing racquetball every day, for maybe sometimes 5 hours a day. And get out of the Army, gained most of that weight back. I was about 240 pounds or so. And went to school, met a girl, and got engaged to be married. I was working as a bartender. And one of my customers says, "Are you going to lose any weight before you get married?" I says, "I'm not getting married for a year. I'm going to be skinny when I get married." And when I got married, I probably weighed about 228 pounds. I lost like 5 pounds the last week before I got married. After I got married, my weight took off exponentially. And it was, 240, 250, 260, 270. And many of the things I hear in meetings, the same things that happened to me. My thighs were chafed beyond belief. My clothing didn't fit. I had to take the vests that were in my suits and have the tailor make pleats for the back, patch the crotch. Spent a lot of time with the tailor. There's another side of this story too. I don't know if it's about me being frugal or what, but and then I'm doing all these, washing all my clothing in cold water, hanging it up wet, and if something doesn't fit me anymore, I'm making an accusation. You put that in the dryer. Yeah. I know, because it doesn't fit me anymore. I used to accuse my parents of cutting my hair when I was sleeping also, so I don't know how well balanced I am. But and I got to 290 pounds, and I was out with a bunch of like-minded guys, and I said, no, for me tonight is only light. From now on, it's only light or diet when we go out. And under the light and diet plan, I went from 290 pounds to 315 pounds. It's the pink shirt picture. I was coming home one day, and all I didn't want to be was fat. I didn't want recovery. I didn't want God. I didn't want anything else in my life. I just did not want to be miserably fat. I would get on the commuter railroad, I would sit down, people would get up and move away because I'm taking up too much space. And you have to see me. I mean, I have bizarre behavior. I had like a 25-minute commuter rail ride, and I would get on with a shopping bag full of stuff to drink and eat for 25 minutes. You think I was going to outer space, you know? Where was I going? I was walking home one day, and I remember it was in like late February or March in New York, which is not really, it's not quite spring yet. But I remember it a warm, soft day. I remember with the sun being on my skin and feeling warm, that my brother had double digits in recovery. And I wonder if they had a plan for the food. And I found that they did. It was called Overeaters Anonymous, and I went. And it was incredible, incredible, incredible experience for me. Because I found out that I had a disease. It was very easy to take the first half of step one. I got a problem with food. My life is unmanageable. My life is fine. I just have a problem with food. But about a month later, I realized my life was unmanageable after weighing and measuring some of that food. And I weighed and measured my food with exception in Overeaters Anonymous. And I did many, many of the things that we do here. I called my sponsor every day. I weighed my food. And I did that from 315 pounds down to 185 pounds. The white shirt picture. What happened, though, in Overeaters Anonymous, although I did not have a relationship with God, I had a relationship with people. This was like somebody put a frickin' ton of fertilizer on me because I grew, because I heard people talking that amazed me. They were talking about how I felt, and I couldn't imagine it. And I wanted to go to more meetings, and I felt this intimacy between all the people, things I never had, how they talked about to one another. They didn't yell at anybody. I remember I had been in drug abuse therapy, and it was some kind of an encounter therapy. And if somebody said, I feel a little guilty about that, everybody would scream at it. And I said, bullshit, guilt is not a feeling. Blah, 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 blah. Very, very aggressive. So I'm at a meeting one time with my sponsor, and I had all these, I was very, very fortunate with sponsors. I shared before, I expected somebody with a brown shirt and a stick. And I had all these people that I was just like, they were so wise. It was like Gandhi was my sponsor. It was incredible, incredible. And some woman was sharing in a meeting, oh, my refrigerator wasn't delivered, and then this happened. And I says, this is nothing about food. Why doesn't someone ask her to be quiet? And he says to me, George, everyone is entitled to their 3 minutes. And that was such an awareness for me. It was like something that was totally outside of me, and it was put into my head. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And he told me a lot of stuff in the beginning. I wish I could recollect it all. And I says, how am I going to lose this weight? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? He says, you're just going to weigh and measure your food today. He says, did you ever read Tom Sawyer? And I said, no. He says, there's a picket fence they have to paint. And you only have to paint the one picket. You don't have to paint the whole fence now. You only have to paint one. And I carry that to this day, because if I do something at home, I don't have to clean out my whole closet or have to do everything today. I only do one thing, and that's a remarkable thing. Sometimes I can sustain it. If there's a project that needs one day and it needs a few more days, I'll pick it up again tomorrow. But these are things that never occurred to me in my life. I was like, oh my God, it's the whole thing. This sponsor took me from 315, that was the other wise thing he told me. I went to buy a shirt when I weighed 185 pounds. Now, at 315 pounds, I'm wearing an 18-inch neck and all these large clothes. And I go to the store, and the salesman measures my neck. And he says, 15 and a half. I said, that's bullshit. A man doesn't wear a 15 and a half inch neck. And I went back to the office and I called my sponsor. And he says, George, a man wears what fits him. And this was like another tremendous revelation in my life. I couldn't believe it. I was astounded. Okay. What happened? I went on maintenance in Overeaters Anonymous. I did not have a spiritual recovery. But God allowed me this portion of my journey. It was the intimacy and the people speaking about their feelings that I was there to get. And I learned how to weigh and measure food too. But when I went on maintenance, I started to take my will back. I started to eat foods I liked better and better and better, and slowly I was gaining weight. And I called my sponsor and I said, do I have to commit my food every night? He said, not if you're eating the same thing. So I stopped committing my food, and my eating habits got worse and worse. And before I knew it, I was 260 pounds. Going back to where I had come from. And I was like, holy shit, I'm unable to recapture what occurred in Overeaters Anonymous. You see me in that green shirt, that's about 290 pounds. That's on Easter vacation in 1999. And I started Overeaters Anonymous, I went to GreySheet in April of 99 because Overeaters Anonymous was not working anymore. I didn't know what to do. But I heard in the Overeaters Anonymous rooms, people talking about GreySheet. They did not talk about it like, you're my best buddy, GreySheet. They said, this is a horrible program. They got problems with carbohydrates. This happens to them, that happens to them. But I realized, I had come to the realization in Overeaters Anonymous that I was a problem with carbohydrates. Because that 2-cup measure I had of carbohydrates, that became my whole focus of my meal. And how can I get more in that cup? Can I push harder? Can I cook it more? Can I undercook it? How can I get more in that cup? And that became like my whole focus of my meal. And I realized I had a problem with carbohydrates because of what I heard in the Overeaters room about GreySheet, where they didn't eat carbohydrates. I went there. And I was scared something else because I went in the room and all the people had physical anonymity. But they said the mantra. And just like I said, I prejudge everything. That's the stupidest crap I ever heard. They said, what is this bullshit? But there was physical anonymity there, so I went back. I went back for 3 weeks. And I said the same thing every time I went back. This is bullshit. I can't believe this. And some guy said he would start me off. And he got a GreySheet. He wrote down all this stuff, which was fine. Then he gave me another piece of paper. He made me fill out all these phone numbers, about 20 phone numbers. He says, you're going to call all these people till you get a sponsor. Call. I got to get it on the phone also? What kind of program is this? And this is where God was working in my life. Because I look at those phone numbers, I said, what kind of name is Monisha? I'm not calling anybody with the name of Monisha. I said, look at this phone number. It has the same first 3 digits as my phone number. I'm not calling them because their kids might be in school with my kids. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And then I make a phone call and I get an answering machine. And I felt like I hit like a sweepstakes for $1. I said, I don't have to talk to anybody. You know, it was fantastic. But I made the calls. This is God working for me. I would not make those calls if it was left to George. I made those calls. Don't know why, but looking back, the only thing I could see is God was pushing my finger in that little button. And I continued to make calls. I got a guy. He had a foreign accent. He had a name. I never knew people had a name like that. And he's still my sponsor today. And I call him every day at 9:30, except when I'm in Ireland. everything he told me, I said, this is probably the last time I'm going to see this guy. Of course, this is bullshit. He told me, you got to make a hostage meal. And I said, what's a hostage meal? He says, in case you get jammed up, you got a meal, you can go right to it. I said, okay, I'm going to do that. Not. I made the hostage meal, don't know why, God moving in my life, and I ate it in O'Hare Airport. So God moving in my life twice. Suggestions were a little easier to take after that. And he told me, you're going to carry backup. I said, what's backup? He says, come to my car. I go to his car. This is like almost pornographic. He says, look at this. He opens up, that's it? He opens up this Louis Vuitton valise. He says, this is my backup protein. This is my backup vegetables. This is my backup oil. This is my backup can opener. These are my backup batteries. This is my backup here. So, oh, that's great. I'm going to do that. And you know those plastic bags you used to get in the grocery store? All my shit was jingling in there in the back of the car. Jingle, jingle, jingle. So I didn't have this great backup valise. But I carried some stuff with me. And I kept going, kept weighing and measuring my meal. That's it? All right. We talk about things that we do for ourselves that some other people perceive as being selfish. There was some of that in the beginning with my family. They began to support me. But I have to tell you, it was 5 years in before I started to pray. 5 years. And on the 7th year is when I went on my knees to ask and solicit God to continue to help me to do this. And what did it bring me? Like I said in the beginning, I don't know if recovery means finding something you lost, or a bridge back to is someplace you've been. I had never been here. So this was the greatest thing I've ever done for myself. And all those feelings and meetings and conversations with all those people over all those years, I think if I picked up the food, I would just take that all and burn it. I would just lose it all. So I don't want to do that. So thank you very much.